Hey guys, Nico here, and I'm finally back with a new video. So for today's video, I'm trying to paint or attempting to paint this first grade Zaku using speed paints and contrast paints, which is mainly for miniature painting. So if you've been a fan of the channel, you might remember that I already featured this Zaku in another video. I think that's about a year ago now, wherein I showed you guys how to dry brush your Gunpla in order to be able to paint it like a miniature, or just brush painting in general. So for this one, we're not gonna use any airbrush, but you can airbrush speed paints. But for this one, we're just gonna use a simple Kolinsky brush. So speed paints and contrast paints are not like your normal paints. You can call them specialty paints, and they're more like inks in terms of the consistency. So I'll be painting the Zaku in Char's iconic pink color. But before we get into that, I wanna talk a little bit about Onday's most recent Gundam collection, the Principality of Zeon sunglasses and spectacles. So last June 28, Onday's, a Japanese eyewear brand, launched their second Gundam collection, this time featuring the Principality of Zeon. So I was lucky enough to be invited to take a look at their newest Gundam collection, as well as the 1:7 scale Zaku display head case, which is a pretty awesome um, case wherein you can store up to 4 of your sunglasses or eyeglasses. And I went home with this awesome looking Zaku inspired sunglasses. You can see the side says Principality of Zeon X Ondays, and then a few other writings that would remind you of the Principality of Zeon. I really like the design of this one. I think it's pretty minimalist compared to other Gundam merch, but I think it looks really cool. And this one is really nice. This is one of their spectacles in Char's iconic color, of course. And this one is really nice. You can see the design, the iconic design, emblem of the Principality of Sion down the sides of the glasses, as well as on the nose bridge and around the lens frame. So this looks really awesome, especially up close. You can see the details. So yeah, if you want to get one for yourself, I suggest heading down to their website or to your nearest Owndays branch before they run out. Anyways, let's get back into painting. So Citadel paints are infamous for always spilling because of the style of the design of the bottle. So this is a really nice anti-spill pot holder from Redgrass Games. And then for the speed paints, we're not gonna use any wet palette for this because it's already thinned enough. Like I said, it's like inks. So we don't need to use any wet palette. Instead, we're gonna use a Kolinsky brush. This is number 4, size 4. You can use smaller or bigger brush, doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with. And then, as I said, for the speed paints, we're not gonna use a wet palette. Instead, we're gonna use this cute little painting palette that I got from Japan. So yeah, this is what the speed paint looks like. You don't need to thin it, you just wet your brush with water, and then you can go ahead and start applying it to your model, be it Gunpla or miniature. So what the speed paint does is that after it's dry, it kind of looks like, it seems to me that it pulls around the edges, around the crevices. So like for example, if you're painting clothes, wrinkly clothes, it's gonna pull around the wrinkles. So automatically you have darker areas around those parts, like shadow areas. And then for the lighter parts wherein you put the highlights, it's already light enough. So it kind of tells you already what you have to do. So for Gunpla, it's actually a little bit tricky to make it look nice because Gunpla, it's a robot. It's so flat, so there's no crevices for the paint to really go into. So this is actually a very tricky project. I'm not even sure this is gonna turn out really well. We might have to salvage it by doing some weathering later on. But yeah, let's see what happens. If you are also planning to do something like this of using speed paints or contrast paints to paint Gunpla, I would suggest actually to forego dry brushing and instead just paint the Gunpla in white. Like speed paints work better on top of a white undercoat. So for this one, because I this is technically an experimental kit, I've been doing all kinds of things on this Zaku because it's a first grade, it's cheap. So the first thing I did with this after cleaning up all the seam lines and stuff like that is that I glued it in place. So this doesn't move at all. That's why I'm painting it just like a miniature. And then after gluing it in place, I decided to dry brush it because at that time, over a year ago, I was planning to hand paint it with normal um, hand painting paints. That was supposed to have opaque looking paints, but then I did not work on it until like a few days ago. So now that I'm looking at it, now that I'm watching the video, I should have painted this in white first before um, going ahead and painting with speed paints. But then again, it's an experimental kit, so I'm not really too worried about it looking bad. So yeah, just proceed with caution, or better yet, ask me if you guys wanna paint speed paints on your Gunpla so that your projects would look better than this. So like with most paints, even specialty paints, normal paints, dark colors always works better. Like they're more opaque, they're more easier to handle. And as you can see with the gray paint here, it covers more, like the coverage is better than the pink that we used earlier, as well as with this dark red right here. So this definitely would have looked better if I painted it in green, like a normal Zaku, a green Zaku, but I wanted to paint it in char's color. And so using the speed paints, the flesh, the light colors, the pink ones, it's a pain in the ass to use because the coverage is just really weak, especially if you're not using it up on top of a really white, pure white undercoat. But yeah, anyways, this is what it turned out after 3 or 4 coats of the pink. It it doesn't look bad, but it also doesn't look nice. Like I definitely could have done more, but for this one we're gonna have to stop here and we're gonna have to just do some damage control in the next video. I'm currently working on my GBWC entry, so this will have to wait until I'm able to start working on it again. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye!